Yeah.
It's over. To be continued / shown again in Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, which that movie is a notorious movie because it's probably better known than this movie just for the garbage day scene alone, but it's a sequel to this, but it also shows about half of this movie. So perhaps we should have said at the outset that if you haven't seen this movie but want to follow along, just watch the second movie because you'll see most of what's going on here. But yeah, so that's Silent Night, Deadly Night. Jim, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was a sad movie. I thought it was a really sad movie. There's just a lot of people getting killed and a lot of people for no reason. Going back to what I said earlier about how I was really into the movie for like the first half, up until right after the whole department store stuff, I really liked seeing the character of Billy get berated and stuff by Mother Superior. But then once he became a killer, I just thought this is a little silly.
Oh, it's incredibly silly. You say this is a sad movie, I say this is a joyous movie. I really do think that there's something just incredibly entertaining about this movie. And here's the thing. This movie is a mix of good and bad. It's not one or the other. You could maybe say there are more bad elements to this movie than good elements. Like I talked about, the guy who plays Billy, not that great. When he's just yelling, "Punish," over and over again in that kind of same tone, it gets, kind of exhausting. But this is a movie that, contrary to most slasher movies in the 80s, the first half hour, the first 40 minutes or so, are spent completely on character development.
Yeah.
We can argue all you want about how much that doesn't work, because I think a lot of it doesn't. And part of it is it's a different actor and several, because Billy's a bunch of different ages. It does a lot of things that other movies wouldn't do. I mean, we're still shoving in just as many boobs and just as much blood as any of those other movies that don't bother with characters. And at a certain point in this movie, the building of the character doesn't matter because he apparently just snaps, even though he has enough motivation to go after Mother Superior. Eventually, he doesn't do it until after he decapitates some stupid sledder. I mean, so the character building arguably doesn't work that well, and then it doesn't matter eventually. But the fact that it's there is kind of interesting to me.
I agree with you that it's interesting, and I guess just to kind of go back on my point that I call it a sad movie, I think it's sad because I feel bad for Billy, because we see him just kind of beaten down, berated, we see him scarred and tortured, and we know he's crazy and we know he has this issue. And then he just snaps and starts killing people. And you're like, oh, Billy, I liked you. And especially after that montage at the toy store, you're like, oh, no, Billy, you're doing so well. You're doing so good, Billy.
So you're kind of watching this movie from the perspective, if you will, of like Sister Margaret, because that's how she feels.
Yeah, exactly. So then when he kind of snaps and goes crazy, I'm like, oh, really? Why? But then I kind of also want him to kill Mother Superior, and then he doesn't. And I guess in my head, Billy's more of just like a tragic figure, or he's a victim of circumstance, I guess.
Yeah, mostly. Here's the thing. Even his first kill is reasonably justified in the context of the movie, right? It's Andy trying to rape Pamela. Yeah. Once he kills Pamela, how can you care about him? How can you be on Billy's side?
Yeah, and then, come on, Mr. Sims.
But he is the villain, too. I mean, even though we are meant to sympathize with him through the first half of the movie, he is ultimately your villain. I mean, Mother Superior is also a villain, but, it's just kind of a weird dynamic.
Yeah, and then, I mean, well, because I was even thinking after the movie ended, I think I would enjoy Silent Night, Deadly Night more if it was just about a crazy guy dressed as Santa killing people. Like, if that was the whole movie, if that's how it started. And, there's a news broadcast, I know it's Christmas Eve, everybody, but please remember to lock your doors. There's a man masquerading as a Santa Claus. He's robbed a convenience store, stole $31, and... yada, yada, yada.
So you wanted the movie to follow the person who murdered his parents, is what you're saying, basically.
Well, no, I just use that as a poor example, but I wanted the movie to kind of start with a crazy person dressed as Santa, or it would have been cool if they had because they had that mental hospital in there when they're visiting Grandpa. How come, where's all the crazies, I wanted, a crazy to escape and assault somebody in a Santa suit and then steal the Santa suit.
Well, that's what you're looking, then you are really going to enjoy Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, probably. So that's basically what's going on there, just with 40 minutes of this movie thrown in there. So you watch this movie from the perspective of Sister Margaret. You feel bad for Billy, you want to help him. It's frustrating and it's disappointing when he loses it. I watch this movie from the perspective of Mr. Sims, where I just want to get shit-faced and watch a guy in a Santa suit going around, it takes us a while to get there, that by the time we do, it's incredibly satisfying for me. And what he does is so stupid and over the top and incredible that, oh man, this movie's a lot of fun for me. It's weird because the first half has you thinking you should take the movie seriously, but then the second half is like, no, don't take any of this seriously. And it's a little strange like that, but I like it. It's kind of like Shocker. We talked about that. It was about half with Shocker, where like the first half is pretty serious, the second half is just like throwing everything at the screen.
Yeah, and I guess the only reason in my head that Shocker worked for me more than this movie is that you were made to empathize with the protagonist of Shocker. Meanwhile, in this one, you were made to empathize with the antagonist, and then
Anti-hero.
And then he just starts killing people, and it's like, what? I don't know. And come on, Sister Margaret getting him a job at a toy store, like I brought up earlier. Like, come on, what is this? This is a joke.
It's a small town. Its economy is 100% toy sales. I don't know.
Yeah.
So is this movie deserving of how controversial it was, do you think?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's got a few too many almost rape scenes, but
yeah, no, I'm gonna say it's not, because in the 80s with these slasher movies, so many of them were very, very violent, and so many of them had a lot of sex, some of it rape, that this movie, it's a little bit on the sleazier side, but it's by no means the most extreme. It's not The Prowler, where a naked woman gets stabbed with a pitchfork while she's taking a shower, like that. I don't know. It's kind of everything you want out of an 80s slasher movie, even though you don't really want the almost rape. Like, you kind of know that's in a lot of these movies, so it's like you almost expect it. One thing that I think is really important for slasher movies, and this is what, Friday the 13th has made a living off of this, you want your villain to have a signature weapon. In this case, we get the axe. Mm-hmm. But you don't want every kill to be an axe kill. No. You want some creativity, because that gets boring after a while. Jason, he's got his machete, but he can kill you with his bare hands. He can kill you with axes. He can crush your head and have your eyeball pop out. All that stuff. He can hug you to death. He does that at one point. But in this movie, we get axe kills, we get box cutter kills, we get bow and arrow kills, we get deer antler kills, we get Christmas light strangling kills. It's incredibly creative. How many people does he actually kill with the axe? I think it's just 2. It's the cop,
yeah. And the kid,
and it's the sledder, right?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I like all the kills, but something, because I don't know if we spoke about this already, but I'm pretty sure I hadn't seen this movie, like with most movies on our list. But when I looked up the poster for it, it had
It's the axe, yeah.
Yeah, it's the axe and like a Santa arm coming out of the top of a chimney.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is going to be
It's a classic
great.
poster.
Yeah, and I was like, this is going to be great. He's going to be jumping down people's chimneys and killing people and like attacking people. And
so you wanted more chimney action.
But no, I wanted more Santa-esque antics, instead of just a tragic
he just
figure
burst
running
through a
around
door
the woods.
kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't...
Okay, I sort of see that. I do see that to a certain extent. I think...
Or like festive
when it comes
kills,
to
like
Christmas,
the Christmas lights. If you had more like garland
that was
stranglings, bring that in.
he could kill someone with an icicle, which happens in one of the Black Christmases, maybe even more than one of them.
Did you know my dad was in Black Christmas?
The 74 one? No way.
Yeah. My
is
dad
he a caroler or something?
Well, he's an extra. I forget what scene it is, but him and one of his best friends is an extra. They're kids.
Because that was shot at the University of Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other Christmassy things he could have killed people with.
Giant candy cane.
Who has a giant candy cane though?
Oh, but it'd be on somebody's lawn. It's Christmas.
Oh, he could shove someone in a fire because a lot of people have fireplaces going Christmas. Yule log kind of thing. Yeah, I suppose they could have taken more advantage of that. I don't really think Christmas when I think bow and arrows. I think Valentine's Day.
But, if they could have just been more creative with, like, the festivity around it all.
Well, at the very least, he does give someone a gift, and it's a horrifying gift.
It is, yeah.
It's not quite as great as, like, Nightmare Before Christmas when the kid opens up his Christmas gift and it's just a severed head. If they could have worked that in there somehow, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.